Let's start. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for taking your time to attend the CAREC Women's Empowerment online platform guest speaker series with Ms. Maya Kobalia. Before introducing Maya, I would just very briefly mention what, for those who actually maybe not aware of this online platform, the CAREC Women's Empowerment online platform is a comprehensive and user-friendly digital space that aims to empower women across the region and by providing capacity development resources and opportunities for network, knowledge sharing, and collaboration with stakeholders. So within this platform, we plan to have another 2 or 3 series of talks with different guest speakers. So our today's trainer, Ms. Maya Kobalia, is a woman empowerment champion and the BAS Woman Global Changemaker. And she is head of the environmental and social department in one of the biggest microfinance organizations in Georgia. Maya was recognized in New York as the UN Global Compact Young Sustainable Development Goal Pioneer, as the first Sustainable Development Goal pioneer from Georgia. Maya also studied in Estonia, Germany, and Poland, and her studies and career interests have also taken her to different stages from Georgia to India to Philippines, Zambia, and US, etc. And she was a mentee in Hillary Clinton's Madeleine Albright founded Vital Voices Leadership and Mentoring Program for women leaders. Maya's interests include foreign languages. She actually speaks 6 languages, and women's economic empowerment, behavioral science, and music and inspirational motivational speeches. We are very honored to have Maya today. And I just, before turning the mic over to Maya, I also would like to briefly mention what the brief introduction of this training. Maya will actually discover unconscious gender biases that shape our decisions in our everyday life. Participants will gain valuable insights into how unconscious bias affects decision-making, interactions, and organizational culture through engaging content, real-world examples, and interactive exercise. As a result of 1.5 hour meeting, participants will be able to contribute to more inclusive workshop culture, promote diversity as well as equality within an organization, and most importantly, recognize and challenge their own biases. So very warm welcome, Maya, and over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Solango, for your very beautiful and warm introduction. If you would also like to make some housekeepings with the translation, etc., or you already did, in the chat I have seen, but if you would just repeat so that people don't ask later on. Meanwhile, I will share the screen and I will start in a minute.
Yes, please, there is a interpretation button down, and you can actually change, you stay in an English channel. For those I would like to listen to in Russian, and then obviously you need to switch it into Russian channel. So and then we will also have simultaneous translation. So and then if you have any questions, when you are done to speak, or please mute your microphones, and yeah, enjoy your training.
All right, thank you. Then I think we are ready. I see that people are also joining, but let's start. Thank you very much, CAREC and Solango, Catherine, Charles, for your invitation, and most importantly for the really nice cooperation and fruitful during all this time. I think we have started talking about this webinar early in June or May. So I'm really privileged and honored to be here. And I hope you also see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, then let me move to the next slide and explain what we will be doing today. So what you will see or hear or feel. So introduction done by Sorongo. She already did it beautifully. Thank you once again. I will start with welcoming and some of the objectives of our today's meeting. Then we will move to identifying what actually is a cognitive or unconscious bias. And then more specifically, what is the gender bias? Maybe some of you have heard about gender biases. Some of you have been working with behavioral science. Some of you have never heard of it. All of you, it's fine. We are here to learn a little bit today about cognitive biases. I know it's only 2 hours. 2 hours is not enough, maybe 2 years, even 20 years. People are exploring and searching the behavioral science field. But most importantly, we will find out the common gender biases. That's what I hope you will take away from today's meeting. And you will also understand how many biases there are and how it influences our daily decision-making practices. Because we as leaders, as employers, as employees, as mothers, as parents, as citizens, as opinion leaders, change makers, we are making a lot of decisions during a day. And we'll see the slide how many decisions we're actually making during the day. Then we will talk why bias matters. Well, because nobody is unbiased. As human beings, we all are biased. And then we'll discuss those 5 common gender biases in leadership and decision making. Then we'll have 2 case studies, interactive activity, and then so that you don't leave our today's webinar with only understanding and defining. Actually, this is important. The first step to combating unconscious biases is understanding and defining and realizing that we have this blindness, all of us has it. But so that you don't leave sad a little bit after the webinar, because we will find out that there are so many biases and we're so biased, then I will give you some strategies, which is also scientifically proven, obviously, for recognizing and overcoming them, whether at workplace or in our personal lives. We will have some key takeaways and reflections as a summary in the end, and then, of course, Q&A in this session. But please feel free during my speech, so that you don't forget, note down the things that I will be talking about. You will need this in the end. And also, please write your questions or comments in the chat during the conversation. So before I will move to the next slide, I wanted to ask you, you can raise your hand, how many of you, or write in the chat if you would like to, how many of you have been working with unconscious biases or behavioral science, or how many of you have heard maybe before what is unconscious bias and how it influences our daily lives and decision making? Okay, I see several hands raised. Very good. I see one, which is Nazira Shurgenbaiba. Very nice. Okay, 2 participants raised hands. Very nice. 2 out of 57 is really good. All 3 now, because even though we are so much influenced by the biases, my dears, not a lot of people know it in depth. And that's why we're here today discussing it. Okay, I see Gisela's hand raised, 2 other hands raised. Thank you very much. Okay, now, first thing first, once again, welcome you warmly here. And one of the biases that we have about human beings, about other human beings, is when we hear the name and surname, especially when we hear that someone is authority, or when we hear that someone will be training or teaching us something. Actually, I wanted to clarify here, I'm not teaching anything. I'm just exploring it together with you. This is my passion. And so I'm really more than glad and thrilled to share this knowledge and experience and passion of mine with CAREC's team and at this webinar. So if you have, and so the curiosity is one of the things. If you have been curious enough, and I hope some of you have Googled already who was the trainer or the speaker, then in less than 20 seconds, you would have found more than 5,000 different pictures and information about me. And again, I'm not a celebrity even. And I'm not even active at different social medias like TikTok, for instance, and some others. But despite that, the social media knows almost everything about ourselves and has its, as they say, has its other personal life. But what Google does not tell you, or maybe it even does, I didn't search that deeply, is that I'm a very big passionate, I'm very passionate about music, together with foreign languages that Solongo had already mentioned. And I'm very passionate about people and people's behaviors. Why? I think, like everything, it comes from childhood. And so I will start also a little bit earlier this journey before I move to today's topic. So I was born in Sokhum, in Abkhazia, which is now occupied region territory by Russia. And so I had been living as a refugee, as an internally displaced person. I was living in a refugee camp, communal living, a shared space, for almost 19 years, all my school years and university years. And there, because you're living in a shared space and there you have no privacy whatsoever, I was so fascinated by observing the people's behavior, whether it was my parents, our neighbors, other IDPs, other refugees. So that's where the first seed, the first spark came of behavioral science, of psychology, because I had a platform to absorb all this information. Then I moved with relations, international relations, and I have been studied in some European universities with full scholarships as a nerd and as someone who loves learning and does it best. And then I had started 11 years ago working for the one of the biggest Georgian microfinance organization, where I'm now heading environmental and social department, which also covers, of course, gender topics. So that's a little bit of my journey. There were a lot of biases in between, and you might also ask people, ask me all the time, so what are your biases? You want to know, because there are so many of them. But knowing this, my own blindness, hidden parts and blind parts, just helps me to realize, and maybe next time to be less biased and less biased. It's not like the people who practice behavioral science are not biased, not at all. So what is the objective now? That's a little bit about me. Now, what is the objective of today's meeting? Again, we only have 2 hours for those who joined a little bit later, and 2 hours is not enough to deeply understand the topic, but the goal is to understand gender cognitive biases, then to introduce common cognitive biases and how it shapes our perception and decision making. Then we will have also opportunity to share examples of daily life and workplaces with these 2 case studies that I promised in the beginning. And then we'll have some time for self-reflection also, because that's also a very important part, how we can avoid those biases in workplace, because it is possible, obviously. And here comes the good part. Knowing our own biases, knowing others' biases also makes us better communicators and allows us to have better control of our own personal or professional decisions. And then in the end, discussion, Q&A and discussion. But you are free to write your questions in the chat, and then Solongo and the team will read them out in the end. Okay, so now we are in what is cognitive and unconscious bias. So unconscious bias or cognitive bias or prejudice or stereotypes, which is also well known, is something, whether it's an activity, whether it's perception, it's automatic, hidden, and instantaneous judgment and stereotypes that our brains make about others based on various factors like race, age, gender, appearance, and more. Why our brain does such interesting and not very kind thing? Because as human beings, we have our personalities, and personalities are influenced by so many people, so many circumstances, so many childhood traumas, and then adulthood, and then things that we have inherited, like age, generation, ethnicity, gender, identity, like culture. We are here all from different cultures, different regions, different religions, different marital statuses, different socioeconomic statuses even. different organizations. We belong to different organizations, different positions, different industries, different markets and behaviors. We have different self-perceptions, and that affects our communication. And of course, we have different information and processes in our brains. Why? Again, because we are human beings. There's nothing wrong for us in doing that, but knowing and recognizing it helps us to overcome it easier. So why knowing unconscious biases matter, actually? Before we move to that question, we have to answer, as we have said in the beginning, it matters for the decision-making perspective. So please write in the chat or mute some of you who raised the hand first. Just a very, very short answer. How many decisions do you think we make during a day? I mean, average human being, male or female, from the first moment that we open up our eyes till the moment that we go to sleep, how many decisions we make? Could you please write in the chat? And then Solongo will be kind enough to, because I see only my screen, to say how many decisions people are saying that we are making during a day.
Yes, I see 50, 60, 10,000, 5,000, 3,000, 100.
100, perfect.
500.
500.
2.5.
Nice. 2.5, good. All right. So all the answers from 2.5 to 100 to 500 to 3,000 or even more is correct. I know this is shocking, but this is scientifically proven fact. I can give you some other resources about finding it, but even if you Google, even if you find it and go into the YouTube, there's a lot of information that on a daily basis, an average human being, and we're not saying about people who are even more busier, like say politicians or the main decision makers in the world. No, an average human being makes from 20,000 to 35,000 decisions, and that's a lot. And for our brain, of course, it's prejudiced and of course it's biased, because the main thing that our brain does is survival. So in order to survive, it prejudices and biases and takes and makes decisions from that prejudices of our early childhood, etc. But it does unconsciously. That's why it's called unconscious bias. It's not asking another brain, another part of the brain, oh, we are biased now because it's a woman, we are looking at, you know, their appearance, etc. No, it does unconsciously. It happens subconsciously. It happens in milliseconds. That's why this is something to be scared about, and that's why knowing our unconscious biases and gender biases really affect our own decision-making processes. Even more, an average American, also a lot of Europeans fall into that category, makes around 35,000 decisions a day, and making those many decisions also leads to decision fatigue, as it is called. This may cause a greater risk of impulsive behavior, biased thinking, and less physical endurance. So it affects not only our mental brain, but also physical, also emotional, also communication. We can be spoiled because we're biased. Of course, we make different decision makings from that perspective. And so, again, why do we need all of these? Because what we see is not actually what we actually see, but it's from objective facts, analyzing, and then also from confirmations of our beliefs, because we all have this type of beliefs. And just for your information, before we move to the gender biases and the 5 specific gender biases, there are around 200. Yes, you have heard it correctly. More than 188 biases. So this 188 biases are the ones that have been explored, that have been given its name. But there are a lot that we do have, because human beings and all these 86 billion neurons, it's a very rich and holistic thing that we have here. It's more than 188, but so far, scientifically, from the behavioral science and psychology point of view, only 180 biases are explored. I hope there will be more to be explored. And when it comes to the types of unconscious biases, so that you have the bigger picture, not only gender biases, even though we'll be focusing on gender biases, as you know, there are perception bias, halo effect that you might have heard maybe perhaps most often, beauty biases, confirmation biases. This is the most well spread, that we say something for instance, at the meeting with the boss or with the employees. And then because we have already said that, then we are confirming what we have already said, even though it might not be correct. Then we have gender biases and we have affinity biases. And today we'll be speaking again about gender biases. Just remind. So one of the most common gender biases is performance bias. And I'm sure a lot of you, especially the female participants of this webinar, have experienced it. So what is it now? Men are often judged based on their potential, while women are judged based on their past performance. Women must often prove themselves repeatedly to achieve the same recognition as their male colleagues. So please also raise your hands how many of you have found yourself if you're males, and how many of you have had these personal experiences if you're a female. Before that, I will read the example. So in a promotion scenario, a man might be promoted based on his potential to succeed in a future role, while a woman would be required to have already demonstrated a history of success in the same or similar roles. So please raise your hands how many of you, or write in the chat, write down in the chat, how many of you have experienced performance bias? I would really love to know. Meanwhile, I will move to the attribution bias. Attribution bias is also another gender bias, just underlining this fact. It's when women's successes are more likely to be attributed to external factors. For instance, the woman is successful, because she was lucky, or because of her team, or because of her husband, or because of her beauty, or because of, I don't know, so many things our biased brain will dictate us. So rather than their own skills and abilities, while men's successes are more likely to be attributed to their competence or to their skills, capabilities. So for example, a woman who successfully closes a big deal, and I'm sure there's a lot of women who have done this in this webinar today, might have her success attributed to the team effort, while a male counterpart in the same situation might be praised for his individual skills and talents. I will not ask you to raise your hands if you have had this situation, because some of your colleagues might also have been here, might be here, so that you don't feel comfortable. But my hope is that whether male or female or binary, you will all think, about those biases while I'm speaking about this concrete examples, specific examples, or your own personal examples. Then double bind, another very common gender bias. Women are often expected to be a warm, nurturing. Yes, we are warm and nurturing, but if the situation does not require us to be warm and nurturing, if it is a tough situation, whether in politics or in business, and then we are not behaving warmly and nurturingly, then we are called to be assertive or bossy or aggressive. Well, even some other unpolite words, which I will not say on this webinar, but I'm sure you have heard them. But on the flip side, they are too friendly or too warm. That might not be seen as a competent or leadership material. Whereas, as we know, the this level 5 leadership is all about compassion. It's all about empathy. But if women are too empathetic, women are too friendly, women are too compassionate, that's also seen as a weakness. So, for example, a woman leading a project may be criticized for being too tough when she makes firm decisions, whereas a male counterpart making the same decisions might be praised for his strong leadership. Now, because I'm respectful to your time, to CAREC's time, and to the time of this webinar, which is only 2 hours, I haven't brought the videos, but if you would like to have more information, more resources about gender biases or biases in Georgian, in English, in Russian, please contact me. In the end of this slide, you will see also my contact details. And please contact me and I will share with them, all of them, very openly and with great pleasure. Another one, maternal bias. And I'm sure a lot of women who are already mothers in this chat will feel what I'm saying now. Maternal bias is also called motherhood penalty. And this is when women who became mothers are often perceived as less competent or less committed even to their careers. And this can lead, of course, to lower pay, fewer promotions, fewer opportunities. So for example, a woman returning from maternity leave may be passed over for a leadership role because it's assumed she won't be able to dedicate the time needed due to her childcare responsibilities, even though she has demonstrated leadership potential before or after the maternity leave. So I will not ask to raise your hands to the participants, because I know that every woman who had ever been a mother or who had become already a mother, they had all been biased by their colleagues from this maternal bias or motherhood penalty perspective. And last but definitely not least, gendered expectations. So these are mostly in leadership, when, for instance, leadership qualities often stereotypically associated with men. For instance, you're confident, you are assertive, you're good in, let's say, chess or in math, then this expectation is that you are a man rather than a woman. There's a million examples of it. But let's take, for instance, you are in a board meeting or in a managerial meeting or in a family meeting even with your relatives. And a female executive, for instance, might be expected to take notes or handle administrative tasks, even though she holds the same position as her male colleagues, reinforcing traditional gender roles. So here I can ask, how many of you have been in the situation when you were in the same position, but you were asked to note down? And of course you will be said, oh, Maya, because you have a good handwrite. Oh, because you're writing quickly. Oh, because you don't mind writing, because you love journaling and writing. But that's not what they actually mean most of the time. So now, once we know those 5 gender biases, and I will go quickly before we move to the case study. So what we have discussed was gendered expectations of leadership, maternal bias, double bind, attribution bias, and performance bias. Now let's move to the case study. And here you will have the opportunity to also, with the help of our technical team, I will take 1 or 2 replies about this case study. So read it carefully, but of course, I will also read it carefully. But before doing that, I would like to ask you, which of these common gender biases that I have now also named, one of those 5, have you experienced in your own lives and workplaces? You can write down, this is in chat. I will once again go back. So we were talking about gendered expectations in leadership, maternal biases, double bind, attribution bias, and performance bias. So please write down, which of those have you found yourself most caught of as a man or a woman? And then again, Solongo, if you could tell me please, which one of those biases is winning, let's say you're championing from those biases?
This says Ravenna, Paris 1 and 3.
1 and 3, okay, so double bind and performance bias. All right.
And then performance bias, most of them.
Performance bias, yeah.
And gender prejudice.
Gender prejudices. All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your replies. Now let's move to the case studies. So case study number 1, leadership bias. This is kind of bonus biases for all of you, because as you have seen in the previous slides, there are around 200 biases. So leaving you only with 5 biases, I thought maybe I will add a little bit more if time allows. So here it is, leadership bias. So please imagine that a company is hiring a new team leader. Several candidates apply, including a woman and a man with similar experience and qualifications. However, the interview panel subconsciously perceives the man as more confident and capable of leadership based on traditional gender norms. So the woman is seen as competent, but not leader-like. So as a result, the man is chosen for the position despite the woman's stronger technical skills and team-oriented approach. Well, this of course leads to a lack of diversity in leadership, and reinforces gender stereotypes within the organization. And some of the questions that I would like you to reflect on in this particular case study is what unconscious biases, together with leadership bias, of course, might have influenced the hiring decision of this company. And of course, all of them are real life scenarios. I'm sure you have had this type of decisions. Either you participated or you have been the subject of this type or object of this type of unfair and biased decisions. So what unconscious biases might have influenced this hiring decision, and how can your company, because at least after this webinar, I would love and like that you are less biased, or at least aware of your own biases and blindnesses. This is a huge step. So how do you think your company or organization ensure that leadership roles are awarded based on capability rather than the gender perception? I know the second question is a bigger one, and if you would like, you can write in the chat, or if you would like, you can raise your hand and we can give the floor, I mean the screen, as you said, to one or two of you who would like to give some feedback on this leadership bias scenario. Any volunteers? If there are any answers in the chat, so I would like to see them or hear them.
Yeah, there's someone is writing here. It's, you know, the willing of not to be engaged with women, for example.
Yeah, so that's correct. So which from these 5 unconscious biases is this one? It's all of them, actually. And the leadership bias covers mostly all of the other biases, which is so common in gender. Okay, yes. So then while others are writing, we're also thinking, I know this is a big question, as I said in the beginning. The unconscious biases are the ones that we don't necessarily know that they exist. This is the blind spot. If we knew they existed, if we knew that we were biased, and if it was so easy, but nobody said it will be easy to overcome them, then there will be no bias. But I'm sure we have seen so many of them in politics, in businesses, in every spheres of our life. Okay, now let me move, if there is not any other replies, let me move to the second thing that I would also like to make you think. I know those case studies and the things that I have already stated makes you think, which is really great. Case study number 2, performance review bias. So let me also read it for you, but it's on the screen. You can also go ahead with it. In a mid-sized tech company, performance reviews are conducted annually. During the reviews, female employees often receive feedback focused on their communication style, teamwork, and attitude. In contrast, male employees receive feedback centered on their technical skills and strategic thinking. Over time, this gender bias results in men being more frequently promoted, while women remain stuck in the middle management, regardless of their achievement. So you can raise your hand how many of you have been in this situation when the performance review time came and you were biased by your own bosses, whether male or female. It doesn't actually matter when it comes to performance review biases. Male as well as female make the same performance review biases. So the reflection question here is, how does focusing on different traits based on gender impact career growth? Or could you also bring from your own life experiences that either from the negative or from the positive sides, these traits have influenced your career growth, if you can recall this type of situation. And another question is, what strategies can be implemented to make performance reviews more gender neutral? You can either raise your hand again, or you can write in the chat. I know writing in the chat might take a lot of time, so you're more than welcome to, for this particular time, I know you're all muted, but for this particular time, whoever raises his or her hand, they will be given the mic.
Yeah,
so,
Maya, Shohida Tuliva,
okay.
please.
Shohida, go ahead. So what do you think about this case study? Have you experienced it yourself? And what are your thoughts when it comes to the strategies to implement when it comes to the performance reviews of for it to be
Меня
gender?
слышно?
Yes, we can hear you.
Меня
Yes,
слышно?
вас
Now
слышно. Да, да, слышно, вас
Yes,
слышно.
yes.
Пожалуйста.
Я бы хотела другую точку зрения высказаться, если честно, проведя несколько исследований в водном секторе, скажу по водному сектору именно гендерного аспекта, да,
Yeah.
изучая этот вопрос, я бы сказала другой момент, что на самом деле то, что здесь вот
Alright.
указано, что, например,
Mm-hmm.
женщины немножко по-другому думают, и мужчины в том числе. Когда я задала вопрос, если придет женщина руководителем, да, в водном секторе, что изменится? На самом деле женщины думали не технически, а больше благоустройства, там атмосфера будет там позитивной, да, а мужчины чисто, они фокусированы были именно на технических аспектах, как решить вопрос, как насосные станции починить, как решить ирригационные вопросы, да, проблемы ирригационных систем, да. А женщины реально думают немножко по-другому, уют, дом. И вот вы не поверите, по результатам исследований в Таджикистане, например, на основе одного бассейна мы выявили, что не все женщины хотят быть руководителями, потому что им удобно из зоны комфорта быть только начальником отдела, потому что это ответственность большая, если быть руководителем, и не все готовы дальше двигаться по карьере. То есть вот этот стереотип, который есть, сложен, да, у нас, что мужчины якобы там не дают развитию и так далее. Нет, не каждая женщина, оказывается, она готова быть руководителем. Дополнительная ответственность, дополнительный ненормированный график, да, что не будет, что будет мешать ее семье и так далее, да. Хотя зарплата одинаковая, что у мужчин и у женщин. А мужчины, они готовы вкладываться, развиваться и так далее. Конечно, декретный отпуск мы не отменяем, есть декретное бремя, это другой вопрос, да. Но, оказывается, есть женщины, которые просто зона комфорта, когда они находят, им это нормально, комфортно. И мы здесь вот тоже не можем сказать, что это гендерное неравенство, или же наоборот, как бы женщина не развивается, не идет по карьере, потому что тут мужчина. Вот этот стереотип и предубеждение мы как бы убираем, проводя вот эти исследования, выявляем, что есть женщины, которые хотят, да, окей, они двигаются, и нету здесь предвзятости, если женщина, наоборот, умудряется быть руководителем, а наоборот, ее поощряют, и наоборот, мужчины говорят, я даже слышала, что молодец, она, будучи женщиной, добилась вот это, будучи женщиной, она решает эти вопросы, то есть есть поощрение, да, поэтому я как бы здесь уже говорю о том, что не всегда как бы гендерные вот эти предубеждения или стереотипы, они совпадают с реальностью. Именно я говорю про водный сектор. На самом деле водный сектор – это тяжелый сектор, и не все женщины готовы идти туда. И мы должны как бы вот разговаривать с людьми, да, и спрашивать мнение их. Спасибо.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much. It takes
Sorry,
a lot
Maya. There is also another two people are raising their hands, and also those in Russian, in the chat box in the Russian, I translated and sent to you by WhatsApp chat. And there are two ladies raising hands here. William Kalakova, Nazira
If I can
Zurkungayeva.
please reflect a little bit
sure.
with the previous comment, and then I will give the floor to the other two. And thank you for your for your replies. That's very generous of you. So it takes a lot of bravery to say and state openly about your thoughts, whether biased or not biased, when we are at the webinar of biases and unconscious biases. So I will start with asking you a question, sir, if you don't mind. So what is your, so if I understood correctly, you are from Tajikistan, right? So what is your favorite Tajik food? If you can please tell me. So I'm from Georgia, so my Georgian favorite is Mengrelia and Khachapuri, because I come from Mengrelia, the Western Georgia. And so it's a kind of bread with cheese inside and with eggs on it, and it comes and serves warm. So that's one of my most favorite ones. So what is yours?
Могу сказать, любимая еда — это рисовый суп и, конечно же, плов наш.
Rice soup. And okay, pilaf and rice soup. And does it comes, ma'am, warm or cold?
Теплым, горячим даже.
Горячее. Okay. Yes, warm and hot. So if I had never tried the soup, the rice soup or the pilaf, and I don't know how it tastes, like I'm from Georgia or from other countries, would I know if I will eat it cold? Someone gives it me cold and serves in a restaurant, for instance. I am in Georgia or in the United States or in Germany. I am in a beautiful Tajik restaurant and someone serves me this cold. Would I know that it's wrong when I have never in my life tasted traditional and delicious Tajik cuisine? Would I know that?
Вы бы, конечно, не знали, потому что предупреждение, либо у вас было бы мнение
Yes.
заранее, да? Вы же в любом случае, до приезда вы
It's
бы
not even a
узнавали,
bias.
да? В любом случае.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not bias. It's not bias. It's the lack of information. And that's what is happening in the cases that you have described. The women who, as you said, but I'm not agreeing with this, of course, obviously, the women who want to stay in the comfort zone, the women who are more inclined, that's what the biases that I have been speaking about. I'm not very well aware of the Tajikistan water supply, obviously, but I know that when we choose the comfort zone, it's because of, first, lack of information. I would not know how the delicious Tajik food and cuisine smells or tastes before I have even tried it. So those women who are risk averse, risk aware, are saying no to the promotion, are saying no to the development, are saying no to the technical skills, are saying no to a lot of other things that you have beautifully mentioned in your case, not because they are less aware, not because they are women, but because of all the prejudices and biases. Actually, that is a prejudice and bias when we say that a woman does not want. It's a different case when you are aware, you have been there, you have been the CEO, you have tried it, you have been promoted, you have been nourished by your male or female colleagues, you have been supported like males are supported. That's another, and you still decide to stay at home, and you still decide to move to different positions, to remain in the mid-managerial position. That's another story. That's another story. And of course, I'm very respectful, as I'm sure all of you here in the chat and the webinar, we're all respectful to the decisions of all of us, whether male or female. But here we're talking about the lack of information, because we take decisions, as we have seen. Do you remember how many? 22,000, from 22,000 to 35,000 a day. I opened up my eyes. So, oh, I have a webinar today. What I'm wearing? Oh, should I wear these glasses or the other glasses? Or should I wear because the background has to be violet? Should I wear violet because violet's my favorite color? But I didn't chosen it because it had to be a contrast, so I have chosen a white one. And then I went to to take a shower, and then I had a morning tea, and then so many decisions. Even before 9 a.m., I had already 20,000 perhaps, and the day had just started. So our brain subconsciously, again, makes those decisions. And those women who choose to remain at the middle or low level, as you said, you have mentioned several times, ready. They are not ready. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The companies who are aware about gender biases and generally biases and psychology of human beings, they make systems work. And the systems are less biased, then women and men are equally given the opportunity to raise. That's a different situation. Then we can talk in a different talk or in a different webinar what women decide. But in a situation where women are not ready, as you said, I wrote it down, and when women are not even aware of the possibilities, and they have never been the CEOs, they have never been the managerial positions, because, as you said correctly, they are in the comfort zone. And we know what happens in the comfort zone. We do not develop when we are in the comfort zone. So again, the water supply system or market could be different from the water supply systems in Georgia, and I'm sure it is different because of all the cultural and behavioral and country and regional and geographic position and all the other things that influences our decisions. But the case study that you have given is definitely the one that is influenced by some of the biases of ourselves again. But let's not go into the deep of this particular situation. If you could, the others who have raised their hands have some reflections on this particular one, on the performance review biases. But thank you very much for your
Если можно будет, Майя,
very good.
могу я потом написать вам?
Yes,
Написать
yes,
вам, мы
please.
можем потом отдельно поговорить, да? Мне очень интересно будет поговорить с вами отдельно. Спасибо. Great.
I would love that. Because I'm sure there's a lot we can exchange and there's a lot we can learn from each other. Because for me, I conduct this type of trainings all the time in behavioral science, in women's economic empowerment, in psychology, positive psychology, and in cognitive biases. So these are the things that I'm very passionate about, which I'm sure you have already noticed. So I will be more than happy. As I said in the beginning, in the end of this presentation, you have my contact details of LinkedIn. So each of you, whether you want it from your company or for your family or for your friends, to get either mentoring or trainings, yes, feel free to contact me, or just a discussion, a friendly discussion. Just please contact me anytime. Yes.
Sorry for interrupting you. We have to take another
please
person, and then please mind the time. And so we have to try to be short, keep it short.
Yes.
So Guliam Kolakova.
Please. Thank you very much to the timekeeper, Salongo. Thank you for reminding me. We still have 1 hour and 8 minutes, so we are good. Thank you for reminding, though.
Hello, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Maya, for an excellent presentation. I'm learning a lot. My name is Gulia Kalakova. I'm a gender specialist and working in different areas in Turkmenistan, Ashgabat. For the strategies, I would like to just advise the strategies, say for the newly emerging companies, especially companies run by women in Central Asia, and Caucasus, and other countries, to hire more women to the positions taken by men before. For example, IT sector, engineering, drivers. We have to ourselves change the stereotypes. Why don't we have drivers as a company, women as a drivers in the company, for example? Or we can hire men for the positions that were taken by women, cleaners, nurses. This is the strategy. And another interesting strategy could be for the performance evaluation, ask male colleagues in the performance to evaluate women, and ask women in high-ranking officials to evaluate men. And that's how we can see and break stereotypes. In my personal experience, I can say I was in a very harsh environment. I worked in Afghanistan. So I worked in a government agency as a manager, and I was in one room with 6 other male colleagues. And imagine it was something like one-stop shop. And imagine all these Afghan men, business owners, coming to our office, and how their wide open eyes when they see me working in in an environment of men. But everybody explained, oh, she's from Turkmenistan, she's not Afghan. Okay, that's okay. Then I was switched to work with an Afghan company, and I was the only one among 50 men in the company, and I was a deputy director of the boss. So it took just one Afghan man to believe in a woman that she can do better than all other colleagues. And I started approaching men like we're equal. We're not one person. So we can ourselves be one person. Or in Turkmenistan, I'm driving in the villages, and everybody looking at me. Oh, women driving. And last 3 years, now I see more women driving in the villages. So we are the ones to make the first step.
Thank you so much, Gulia. That was very kind of you. I've never been to, I have to admit, to Tajikistan or Turkmenistan, but I'm sending my best regards to both of your countries. Guli actually in Georgian means heart. So thank you for your heartful and heartwarming comment. And I cannot agree more to the fact which I have to repeat, which you will see also in the end of my presentation, but it only takes this one person who believes in us. I will repeat this again. It really takes this one person, especially when we're in tough situations and tough cultures. It takes this one person who believes in us. The sad thing is that we don't always have this one person, and that one person has to be ourselves. That's why self-awareness, knowing that the other persons are biased. And the way they behave is not they are bad people, no, because of their upbringing, because of their cultures, because of their religion, because of their beliefs, they are prejudiced in advance. So that's why they are behaving the way they behave. So then we are less angry, less furious. And then because we are less angry and less furious, our decisions are also based and coming from the place of peace rather than hate. And that makes a total difference. I can imagine how tough it would be for you to be one woman out of 50, one woman out of 5. So kudos and bravo. I think what women don't do is cheering to each other. And so I think that's one of the things that I would also recommend to do to each other, women cheering to other women, women empowering and supporting and lifting up to other women rather than waiting to the male colleagues. But of course, the male champions and including the men on the board. This is something I have not mentioned, but this is something that goes without the word or without even talking about it, because this is obviously important. Thank you very much. So Solongo, you mentioned there is one more raised hand, and let's give the floor if he or she is still there.
No, I think it's yeah, it's
we have covered the topic.
yeah,
Okay,
covered,
yeah. Very good. Thank you so much.
Maya, sorry, there's a question.
Oh yes, please go ahead.
It's just about the PPT. Is it possible to share English PPT or text of cases?
Yes, you can share to the participants who would require. Yeah, upon the requirement, I think you can share it, because this is the knowledge that we should share openly to make ourselves less. And again, if this was something that I have invented myself, I would already receive the Nobel Prize in economics, perhaps. This is not something that I have invented. This is something that I have researched, hundreds and thousands of books in different languages that I speak, the universities that I have attended, the experiences that I have had. So this is the narrowed down information. So of course, you can make use of it. I will be only glad.
Yeah, Maya, there's the reflection from Farhana Mazar. I will just very quickly read it out. You're
Yes,
absolutely right. Often women have to constantly perform a double capacity. 1, to prove themselves in the context of the gender, and 2, to show they can do same work as men. It can feel like you have to
prove yourself all the time.
Twice as hard to meet those dual standards, proving both your competence and your role and your strength as a woman. It's challenging, which all over the world women is facing.
It is. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this is not something that started yesterday, or this is not something that had been invented in the 21st century. No. Since the day we were born, since the day the world exists, from unforeseen times, this is something that had been existed and will always exist as the world exists. It had been given the name by science. The names have been given to some of the cognitive biases. As I said, there are around 200. We have only had time for 7 of them, or 5 gender biases and other 2 case studies, but there are 200 of them. But there are 2,000 that we don't even have given the names to it. It exists. We just don't give the names to it. So there's 2 points. Thank you very much, Solongo. So there are 2 points. First and foremost, to prove ourselves. Yes. And imagine yourself, and if you had ever been, even with, take away the gender bias, if you had ever been in a position with your friend, with your teacher, with your partner, with your child, that you had to prove yourself, when you have to prove your own worth, what happens with your self-confidence? What happens with your competence? You doubt it. So that's what happens when women, as it was mentioned in the previous comment, when women say no to the promotion because they are afraid. They are afraid to be judged. They are afraid to make this bold step because they are afraid of so many things, and that is the bias by itself. And why systems help is that, so yes, in the Tajikistan water supply, if the company has a good CEO or deputy CEO and good HR, this thing is not happening at the moment. But it doesn't have to be about the people. People leave the companies after some time. It has to be the systems. who equally puts Maya and someone, I don't know, George or Charles, in the same equal situation. And when I say same, it doesn't mean to give us the same pay. No, it means that when I am afraid of moving up, then I have a coach or a mentor or a friend or a colleague who advises me, Maya, you are in a comfort zone now. But why you don't want to move out of the comfort zone is because you're scared. And why you are scared is because of your grandmother, because of your mother, because of your upbringing, because of your conservative beliefs. And so here's what you can do. We have trainings here. We have awareness raising retreats. We have this and that. So would you like to try it and move and don't be afraid, to be promoted? And if you do all of this, you work on yourself, on your own prejudices. And if you still don't want, then that's another thing. But mainly why women say no and reject the position is because they are afraid to be judged. I don't think I have to name the names. I'm sure in all of your countries, because there's so many countries here, you have politicians, women and men, how men are treated and how women are treated, how men are described and how women are described. We know that. I don't think I have to comment on it, how women are complimented or devastated by if she's wearing not a beautiful dress, or if she's wearing too really revealing, if she's wearing too high heels, or if she's wearing too short heels, if she has a longer hair, if she has a short hair, too short hair, not woman style, if she's wearing big glasses, if she's wearing thin glasses. Oh, there's so many. Nobody ever, either in sport, in politics, or in business, talks about this type of descriptions about men. That's the thing. My dear. Okay, now let's move. We're good with time. Let's move to the strategies for recognizing and overcoming biases. So one of the things that I would definitely repeat that Julia mentioned is, of course, it takes this one person who believes in you. It can be your mother, your grandmother, your father, your partner, your child. But when we don't have this type of people around us, my dears, it has to be ourselves. And I'm talking here now, not about women. I'm talking about men and women now. It's this one person has to be ourselves. But some other, let's say, scientifically proven strategies when it comes to overcoming and combating gender biases are the following. And I know that there are translators, and sometimes I find it difficult to, when I get too much passionate about the topic. So I will try and reminding myself that I need to slow down a little bit. So I will try to talk about this in a slower manner so that you're not surprised why I'm doing it. So the first one is awareness and education. And when I say awareness and education, I mean constant, regular, daily, monthly, weekly, annual practices. It's not something that we do once in a year. Oh, let's have the gender bias or sexual harassment training. Tick. No. It has to be in our daily behavior. If it is not in our daily behavior, in our daily or weekly managerial or non-managerial talks, then it's not a priority. If it's not a priority, then it's not combating and overcoming. So constant awareness and education. And it doesn't have to be about the company at all. About with our daughters, with our sons, with our cousins, with our grandparents, with our parents, and most importantly, with ourselves. Constant awareness raising. Nowadays, there's so many information in English, in Russian, in so many other languages that we cannot say that we have to go to the library, we have to spend hours. No, it's like very available today. Then second one is mindful reflection, what we had just done. And I'm again very thankful for the volunteers who volunteered to hear their voice, because it also takes a lot of courage. So I'm very thankful. Regularly questioning our assumptions about people based on gender and consider how those assumptions might impact our decisions and actions. And when I say mindful reflection, this doesn't mean that the CEOs or managers reflect on themselves. No, each of us reflecting on each other's behaviors, of course. The third, diverse interaction. This is also scientifically proven that when we are actively seeking interactions with individuals from diverse backgrounds, for instance, from different countries. For instance, I didn't know that there was the rice soup. right? Or plo, well, plo we do have. So interaction about this type of, well, this is about cuisine, but cuisine, culture, beliefs, religion is an important part to understand those other people with different cuisine, culture, religion, gender. This helps to break down stereotypes, of course, and fosters greater empathy and understanding. Also, it encourages diversity in a team, in a family, in a society, etc. Fourth, what we can also do is inclusive decision making. Now, what does it mean? It's a fancy word, it's beautiful, we have heard inclusive finance, inclusive this, inclusivity, inclusive decision making, but what is it when it comes to the actual steps? It's to structure and implement standardized decision-making processes, such as, for instance, criteria-based evaluations for hiring or promotions, or to reduce the influence of bias. And here, the blind recruitment is one of the greatest things that has ever been invented. So maybe you have watched some of the movies by Hollywood, by Netflix, that are very famous now about conductors and musicians in the United States. When they knew that there were women standing on the stage, then they were choosing, of course, obviously men, especially with bigger instruments that was heavy for a woman to carry. And they would, of course, prejudice women and say, oh, because it's a huge instrument, she will not be able to play it. But then the blind recruitment started, and it changed the history. So the same in the companies. We can use the blind recruitment, which means use anonymous or blind resume reviews and processing it to minimize these biases in hiring and selection. We don't know the name in Estonia. We don't know, for instance, Maya in Georgia is a female name. So if it's Maya Kobalia, then everyone knows it's a female future potential employee. But if we cover it and cover some other information that is about gender and belief, and then with this blind recruitment make decisions, you can try with your own friends actually to do something like this, or with future employees. This really makes a difference. Another one is feedback and accountability. Feedback is very important because we are always constantly learning from each other. So encouraging open feedback from peers and subordinates, again, not only from the CEOs, from the HR departments, no, from peers and subordinates on how biases may be showing in your behavior or decision making. Again, why? Because the biases are the ones that these are our hidden blind spots. We are not even aware that they exist most of the time. Sometimes we are aware, we know we're biased, and then we change something. But most of the time, we are not even aware. That's why awareness raising, talking about it, even if we have different, not even, I mean, when we have different opinions, it's very much needed because it changes the perspectives of both of us. Then policies and culture. Promoting gender neutral policies, because yes, my boss at the moment is very compassionate, is very supportive, but people go and leave the company and come, and it doesn't have to be based on people, but based on culture and based on policies rather and systems, rather than on human beings who are compassionate or who are naturally, gender sensitive. And last but definitely not least, regular reviews and adaptation. So what I mean in this is to periodically review organizational practices, policies, procedures to ensure that they are free from bias. And again, I'm not talking here about only gender bias, but all those other 188 cognitive unconscious biases. And continuous learning. As I said in the beginning, awareness raising and education, continuous learning, staying updated on the latest research and strategies for mitigating unconscious and gender biases. There's a lot of systems, there's a lot of exercises, there's a lot of board games nowadays that you can do to overcome your own biases, actually. And now we move to the key takeaways and reflections. But before I move to my own key takeaways and reflections, I would really like to hear one or two, whether it's in the chat or whether it's, you can raise your hands because we do have time, fortunately, to say what would be your 2 or 3 top takeaways from our today's webinar, not only from what I have said and shared, but from all the discussions and all the dynamics that have been happening during this almost an hour and a half. So one or two takeaways and reflections, your own reflections about the gender and the cognitive and unconscious biases from today's webinar, what it would be.
Maya?
Yes.
Just two comments. I translated the Russian, the comments, reflections in the chat box in English, so you can have a look on that. And then after your key takeaways, the reflection section, and before the Q&A and discussion, we will have a group photo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so please remind the audiences. Thank you. And also, when we have a group photo, please unshare your PPT.
Presentation. I will do it in the end. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Or you would like it now?
No. After the reflection part. Yeah.
Yes.
Before the Q&A.
Yes, before the Q&A. Okay, perfect. So, what are your key takeaways, dears, and reflections on the gender biases? What resonated the most with you, whether through the discussions or through the slides and information that had been shared? What was it? What called you? What would you change? What would you do differently from now on, whether with your daughter or your son, your husband, your wife, your colleagues, your subordinates? What is it? There are too many women in Tajikistan who want to leave their comfort zones in the waters. Yeah, okay, this I have read, I think. Thank you. All right. Unfortunately, irrigation required construction. Okay. Okay, yeah. Стараться не предупреждение и ожидания. Okay. I see. Okay, thank you. Is anyone a volunteer to speak up and say? Because that's also one, combating the bias, to speak up at the gender bias topic and share your reflections. But before you write in the chat or do that, then I will move to my own key takeaways. So first and foremost, understanding and addressing cognitive gender biases is crucial for creating equitable environment, because these biases can steadily influence decisions and interactions in ways that perpetuate inequality. Another key takeaway from our today's discussions would be, by recognizing and mitigating our cognitive gender biases, we pave the way for more fair and inclusive practices that benefit everyone and foster true equality in both personal and professional spheres. And what I mean here is that it's not something, again, as I said, if I had invented this or written about this too much, and if I was the first one to do so, I would already have a Nobel Prize in economics. But I was not the first who came. There were a lot of women and men who paved the way to me, to all of you, when it comes to women's economic empowerment. And first and foremost is to recognize and acknowledge those who came before us. It could be our grandparents, it could be our parents, it could be our partners, our friends, who always were there to nudge us, to encourage us, to support us. Actually, there is an amazing book, and I also do the book. So I read the books in English that are about leadership, cognitive biases, behavioral science, mostly in psychology. And then I review them in Georgian, because Georgia is a small country, 4.5, some people say even 4 million people. So those books are not necessarily translated into Georgian. So I do it for those of them who either are too busy to read in English, even the ones who are English speaking, or for Georgians who are not are not able to read, the CEOs or the managers who are not able to read in English. And so one of the things that, one of the books, my most favorite books is Nudge, N-U-D-G-E, Nudge. It's like giving a nudge, right? And and the authors, Sunstein and Thaler, from Harvard and Chicago University, one is a lawyer, another is economist. They actually got the Nobel Prize in economics before discovering this type of very as simple as this nudge. Why? Because, again, because of all the other cognitive biases, because of the importance of nudging each other, of supporting each other. Even this one person, as Julia said, even this one word that influences us positively, or even this one word can also destroy our whole career and destroy our self-esteem. Another one is numerous studies confirm that women who are equally qualified as men are less likely to be hired for leadership positions due to unconscious biases that favor male candidates for such roles. And we have discussed 2 such case studies today. This highlights the need of conscious efforts to counteract these biases and in recruitment, in promotion processes, in leadership, in decision making, etc. And when I say conscious efforts, I mean what I mentioned and meant in the previous slide: constant education, awareness raising, feedback, talking, reflections. And today's our meeting is also one of this type of manifesto, let's say, to talk about it. For those of us who have learned about it, who are passionate about it, and for those of us who are not necessarily passionate about this topic, it's all fine. Another one is this should be a daily practice. This should not be priority. If it is not on the priority list, then this is not something that can be ever solved. And last but definitely not least, people always fear change. So, for instance, there are so many examples that we were hearing of all the inventions that now exist, whether it's Zoom, whether it's phone, whether it's iPhone, whether it's electric cars, whether it's airplanes. So people were fearing even electricity when it was invented, right? So it's all right. This is a new topic. There is a lot of new terminology, even though I try to demystify a little bit those terminology and explain it in a common language. There still is a lot of scientific words, and there is a lot of research also to be done scientifically. And because this is new, everything new is taken by our brain as something to be scared of, to be afraid of. So that's why we need to constantly talk about these topics, whether it's webinars, whether it's our own trainings for our customers, trainings for our employees, trainings for our own friends. And I would finish before I move to Q&A session with a very favorite person of mine, which is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who said, "Women belong in all places where decisions are being made, and it shouldn't be that women are exception." At the moment, what we see, whether in politics or in business or in literature, even, or in music. So, for instance, if I asked you, who are your favorite musicians? Who are your favorite authors? Very few of you would mention female authors and musicians and composers. The first would come, of course, Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, maybe some others, but very few of you would know that Mozart's sister was as well talented and gifted as himself. But because of the circumstances, because of the upbringing, because of so many prejudices, we know what happens when this happens. So there's a lot of lost opportunity and lost talent and lost potential. I think that's what the companies and we as human beings, as leaders, as champions, as change makers to think about. It's not a nice thing to do. It's a smart thing to do. Why? Because this potential is lost. Otherwise, well, again, if this is a aware and conscious decision of that person, whether man or woman, to be in the decision-making role. And as Ginsburg said, I also believe that we may belong in all places where decisions are being made. Yes, we are afraid to be in decision-making positions. Yes, because of the prejudices, upbringing, and so many socioeconomic, cultural, religious things, because we have been biased and because we have been judged. And our human beings, we want to survive, and our survival mechanism is to get rid of judgments. And so that's why we're saying no, rather than because we're comfortable. No, we want to get rid of judgments, and that's why we're saying no most of the time. And so, as I promised, here's my LinkedIn with the same name that you can find me and write to me, or you can ask them Solongo and the CAREC team to get back to me, whether it will be about the trainings, seminars, webinars, online, offline, or other cooperations that you would like to build together with me, whether it's on sustainability or cognitive biases or gender biases in any other fields that I have mentioned. And now is the Q&A discussion. As Solongo asked, I will now stop sharing it just for the purposes of taking one beautiful picture of all 60 of us. And thank you for being here till the end, all 60 of you. I'm really appreciative of this fact. I will stop sharing, and I think it will be really great if you all turn on your screens, and then we will have beautiful pictures and memory of our today's meeting. I hope as the beginning of many of our meetings in future, whether in person or online. So please tell me when you will finish taking the pictures, Solongo and the team, and then I will bring back some of them.
Now everyone is open the camera, and when I count 1, 2, 3, go, and then it's
we
done.
Smile. Cheese.
Yes, smile. Yes, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
1, 2, 3, go. Done.
All right. Thank you so
very
much.
much, everyone.
Thank you. I will now share back the screen with some of the questions that I have for you guys.
And
yes, here it is.
And
yes,
Maya, actually, there is some reflections also in the chat box, and some of them in Russian. And I translated those in Russian into English. So,
would you like to read them, please, or would you like me to read?
Yeah, probably. Okay, I'll just read out.
Thank you.
Some of them.
Yes, please.
Okay, so Farhana Mazar writes. Yes, I actually read that out. Okay, so the one is writing in Russian. It's try to defeat all these prejudice biases and try to destroy them. And another person, Tahia Husna, is asking after the name of the book, asking you to write down in the chat. And Raushan Amurzaeva, prejudice recognition and overcoming was a great strategy. As owner of the transporting company, we mostly hire male drivers. The males can handle long distances and better physically better. And male managers. It is because the men dislike obeying women.
Right, I see.
And then Guliam Khalakava has responded to that person as, okay, you do your best, to try to hire the female drivers, and they can be more, responsible, and also can be the good workforce. If also Guillaume is still responding, if the men, if they don't like, to be engaged with women, then they can find another job.
Well, it's not always that easy, but
okay, anyway, so that's all these reflections and responses.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have just copied and pasted the book from the internet for you guys so that it's easier, because there could be some other books with the same name, but this is the one that I mentioned by Sunstein and Teller. It's called The Nudge, and it's really amazing book because it just shows us how for women as well as for men, obviously, this type of little nudges by our teachers, by our grandparents, by our bosses, by conscious and gender sensitive people, or generally sensitive and compassionate people, can have a huge influence, because we all come from childhood and we know that. We have our childhood traumas, we know that. So how to overcome it, because then the decisions when we become the leaders comes from all those histories that we have gone through and from the journeys that we have had. So it's not that easy. I didn't say it's easy. It is quite tough. But what we have been discussing today during those an hour and a half was that it is unbeatable and it's overcomable. So my 3 questions for you are, before we say goodbyes to each other, we say some compliments or feedbacks to each other. First one, how has your understanding of gender biases and cognitive biases changed after the webinar? I really would love to hear this, whether it has changed, it hasn't changed, remain the same, that's also fine. But I just wonder also for you who had, in the beginning I asked how many of you have worked with behavioral science or psychology or cognitive biases, and there were only few hands. But how many of you out of 60 now who hadn't had any maybe in-depth touch with cognitive biases or gender biases have changed, and how would you say that it has changed? I would really love to hear your feedback on this. Another question, you can choose actually one of those, or you can answer to all three of them. Can you give an example of a bias that you might have missed before, but now recognize? So from the biases that we have discussed, the 7, whether it's leadership bias or confirmation bias or maternity guilt bias or any other, you were feeling it, you just didn't know it had this particular name that we have discussed today. And third, how do you plan to apply the knowledge that we have heard from this webinar, whether it's the resources that we have, whether it's the prejudices that we have been discussing, system structures in your day-to-day interactions and decision-making processes. And when I say interactions and decision-making processes, I don't necessarily mean only on leadership positions. I mean in interactions with each other, with our partners, with our children, whoever has children, or with our friends and colleagues, not necessarily only with our subordinates or employees. Because the individual experiences that you can see in the picture and social conditions and social norms, plus how our brain works, and our brain is a very complex, and I think you agree, and we know that, that's what equals to unconscious bias. So all of us are biased. Nobody is unbiased, because if we are unbiased, then we are not human beings, my dears, because human brain works and it makes decisions in milliseconds that we are not even aware of. In the minutes and hours that you have now listened to me, we have made hundreds of decisions, whether to read this, whether to listen to me, to my other webinars, whether to get back to CAREC, whether to receive the slides, so many of them. So who would want to reply and give some feedback, please, either in the chat or let me hear your voice. I really enjoyed the ones that I have heard, and I'm once again very grateful.
Yeah,
so
Maya, if you look
change?
if you look at the chat box also, you will see some of the reflections and also feedback from the session.
All right. It's a very informative session. I've learned many things to implement in practical life. Thank you, Dr. Akel. Thank you. Also, our male physical appearance, female, sorry, I'm confused. Is it fact or prejudice? So our male, Asia is asking, so are male physically better than females? Sorry, I'm confused. It is a fact or a prejudice? Physically better than female. So what do you mean? Could you please tell me? And you can actually mute now your microphone. Use this amazing opportunity. Thank you, Maya, for your fully and interesting insights. Thank you, Vika. Yes. Okay. So what do you mean in male physically better than female? Could you please explain this to me? What do you mean that male are better than female? And then we can discuss it. So there was one question about male, if male are better than female, which I didn't really understood. So if you could elaborate a little bit more, Asya, I would be more than happy. Okay, thank you, Maya, so much for being such interesting. Thank you, Natia, Rena Jalova. Thank you very much, Maya, for your valuable, insightful presentation. Thank you, Rena. Very informative and knowledgeable. Thanks to giving opportunity to learn. Thank you. Thank you. Strategies for overcoming the biases are helpful and practical. Thank you, Rovena. Thank you. You're helping a lot to understand people regardless prejudices. Thank you very much. Right. Yeah, I would really like to answer this question about men being physically better than female, but that a little bit confused me, so I don't know what to answer. So if you could explain, we can have a beautiful discussion with each other. Thank you very much. It's made me realize that these biases are not just individual issues, but systemic ones. Yes, actually, that's correct. Thank you, Rena, for saying that. Influence entire workplace cultures. I now see the importance of actively challenging my assumptions and being more mindful in my decision interactions. Wow, that's very nice of you. Thank you very much, Rena.
And also Shofita Tuliva, she said it would be good if we have the webinars, such a webinars, and then we would like to talk to you separately for the more about those kind of trainings online.
Yes. Oh, okay. So Asia replied, is it correct to think that men are stronger than women in physical activities? Well, this is a very big question, Asia, and thank you for asking this. So from my understanding and from scientifically proven phenomena, if you mean in bigger, like, I don't know, 100 kilograms person, then of course someone who is 100 kilograms is stronger, bigger, I mean, than someone who is 45 or 80 or 58, if it comes only the physical ones. But here, the topics that we have been discussing today during those almost 2 hours, these were the ones that was mostly happening in here, in our beautiful brain with all this 86 billion neurons that are connecting in milliseconds and making these decisions. So this thought even that have come to your beautiful head and mind, that are men stronger than women or are men better, as you said, than women, is caused by so many other things that you have read and seen in kindergarten books, if you were going to kindergarten, in your school books, in your university books, in your university teachers, in the eyes of the teachers of your female or male counterparts, in the reactions, in the comments that your teachers, parents, grandparents, friends were given to you. So that's where this question was born. So we were talking today from this depth of our brain, where the prejudices, stereotypes, and this type of cognitive or gender biases in this particular case, because you asked about the physicality of male and female, it's not about being stronger or less strong or weak. It's about being different, yes, but difference does not have to be the main reason for discrimination. That's what we're talking about, to put it simply. Yes, we are different, and that's the beauty of all of us, all 7 billion people. If we all had the same color taste, or if we had the same drink taste, or if we had the same taste about people, even, we would have liked the same people, all of us, and that would be terrible. That would be devastating. Yes, we're different. That's the beauty of all of us, not something that has to be the reason for division. At the moment, how it works in our countries, in politics, in business, in celebrity topics, the differences, the gender differences, let's put it this way, are the main reason for discrimination, are the main reason for gender wage gap, are the main reason in most of the cases, and are the main reason for hatred rather than, you know, adoring and admiring this beauty. So that's my answer. It's not about men being physically stronger or less stronger. It's not about them being better or us being less better. No, it's in the universe, there is enough space for both of us. Enough space for all of us. If we were actually overcoming our biases, then there will be, if the world leaders, I will say even more, if the world leaders who are now causing the wars in the world, if they had worked on their own psychological traumas, childhood traumas, and if they have worked on their own unconscious biases, we will have no war and no poverty. And that might sound too cliched and banal, but this is the fact. And you can think today, after finishing this webinar, about this, and you will see what I mean. You can see the movies, you can read the report, you can see the articles, you can see and read their own biographies, you can read their childhood and adulthood histories, and you will see where all this comes from. Apart from the fact that it's, of course, the global phenomenon, there's a lot of things going on, but it all comes from our understanding and awareness of our own selves. When I am happy with myself and aware, I don't want to destroy things. Not at work, not with myself. I become, not in the world politics, I become destructive once I am angry on myself. This is a very deep topic. We don't have time now to reflect on this, unfortunately, but if you will be interested in future on, we can dwell on it. I will talk about it with great pleasure. Thank you very much, Maya, for an interesting and informative presentation. Thank you, Maria. Okay. Click on the button. Yeah, okay, I see some instructions also from the CAREC team, from Catherine. Thank you very much. I don't know if I have missed any of the comments and I haven't read, or if there is anyone who wants to raise his or her voice. If not, then yeah, that's all that I wanted to say from my side. And I'll be more than happy to discuss this here in the next remaining minutes, or later on in other future potential webinars or collaborations, whether with CAREC or with all of you guys. So the Russian-speaking audience, also you can speak in Russian. I speak Russian. I just don't want to speak in Russian. I will reply in English, simply because 20% of my country is occupied by Russia. But I can reply in English. But I can understand you, so you can speak in Russian and reply in English.
Thank you so much, Maya, and thank you also all your active participation in today's session. So we have had this privilege, of learning from Maya, who has actually shared invaluable insights into the unconscious gender biases that actually influence, our decisions and affect our organization culture. So through her expertise and engaging exercises, we also now better equipped to recognize and challenges these biases within our own environment. That's really important. And also, I hope each of you leaves today with the renewed commitment, to fostering more inclusive and equitable workplace. So please remember, the journey toward equality is ongoing. And of course, it requires continuous reflection and action from each of us. And also, I would like to conclude that, let's take this opportunity to reflect, for example, on the knowledge we gained and consider how we can implement these lessons, in our daily lives and professional roles. So I think it's really important to take this reflection. And so together, actually, we can drive meaningful change and to contribute to empowerment of women across the region. So thank you once again, Maya, for your inspiring session. And
it's been my pleasure.
All of you actually for your engagement. So let's continue to support each other in important work. And before we leave this room, I also would like to draw your attention to CAREC 2024 Gender and Gender Climate Awards, which actually the submission of the deadline is 25th of August, which is actually coming very soon. So we would like to encourage all of you, those actually working in a different sectors, but aiming to promote the gender equality in their own work and climate change related work. We strongly encourage you, to apply and submit your nominations, and all relevant information about submission of the nominations in the chat box. Links is everything is the eligibility criteria also in there. So both in English and Russian. So so those actually speak Russian also accessible, and so everything is related to the gender award. It's in actually Maya was one of the jury members actually for our last
Yes,
year,
that's how we met in
2023.
in Tbilisi, in Biltmore. Yeah,
that's
it
how
was
we
an
actually
amazing.
connected professionally
Yeah.
at the first instance. So maybe Maya, you would like to say a few words about this gender reward, and
Oh, I would love to.
maybe highlight a few words, and kind of empower those actually they would like those who have been already doing excellent empowering nominees and also candidates, potential candidates.
Yes, so I would like to start with expressing my gratefulness first and foremost to you, Solongo, to CAREC team, Catherine, Charles, and all of you here, and to all the participants who have been very actively engaged during this process, because active listening is also very important, as well as active participation. I'm also the type of person who learns a lot by listening and then noting down and reading and then reflecting, because I'm a second, how they say, a second type thinker, like the ones who has to sleep on it and then reflect back. So that's what I would like to say about today's webinar. I'm very grateful to each and of yours diverse replies. When I go to this type of webinars, whether it's physical, face-to-face in other countries, or whether it's online, I enter the webinar or the room or the stage, whether it's 200 people or 50 people or 2000, with the wish to learn something new about the topics that I'm talking. So I have learned something new from your feedbacks, and for that, I'm really grateful. Second of all, I would like to mention that, yes, this is the beginning of this beautiful journey, or for all of you, or for those of you who had been on the gender journey, then this is somewhere in the middle, and I'm very happy that we have met somewhere in your journey, because this journey is something that we should take together if we want the collective peace and collective gender equality, which I'm sure we all want. If you didn't want it to, I don't think you would have assigned to join this webinar today. You were at least curious about this, and I'm very grateful for that as well. And cheers to you, and good job that you did that. Because the first step is actually recognizing our own blindness, as we already mentioned several times, but I will not be tired of repeating this. The first step in everything, as well as in gender biases, is starting recognizing our own blindnesses. Give it a name. It's a bias. It's all right. It comes from my upbringing, from my childhood. It's all right. I will work on it. I will discuss it. I will listen to the webinar. I will listen to training. I will read the books. I will sleep with it. I will think about it. I will journal about it, etc. And last but definitely not least, this type of meetings, it should not, of course, end here. This type of meetings should be all boardrooms. This type of talks, whether it's gender sensitive people, whether it's less gender sensitive people, we all have to talk to each other, because like a lot of you have mentioned in the chats, that you had this new realization that resonated, and you realized that you were less aware than you thought you were. This is all fine, and this is why we have gathered today. So once again, big thank you to all of you, and who dedicated these 2 hours. It's good that we have Saturday and Sunday that comes, so you will have more free time to dedicate to think about this, our own unconscious biases and stereotypes, which we all have. Now, when it comes to the gender award, yes, I was really privileged and honored to be in the jury member in Tbilisi here in Biltmore Hotel last year. And so I will mention several things. First and foremost is that the quality of people that participates in the from different parts of the world is really amazing, and this is something that you don't necessarily want to miss. The diversity of people. Well, I still remember these beautiful people from this small village of China. I mean, when I say small, it's big according to Chinese sizes, but from this remote village of China. Do you remember Solongo and the team who had been in Biltmore with this beautiful pictures of town, but they shared their pictures? It was so lovely, so sweet, and so amazing. So you don't want to miss this diversity, to meet someone from Tajikistan, from China, from Georgia, from all walks of life, from our beautiful different regions. This diversity and the quality of people. But the third one, I would say, well, yes, I was in the jury member, and maybe I am biased when I say that, but also the quality of the jury members is really great. And what I have seen and enjoyed the most, I have been in a lot of panel discussions and jury members, is that here, because I know, because maybe we were from different walks of life, or because we were really responsible and gender sensitive people, we were so careful when we were not choosing, or when we were choosing the candidates, the winners, because we were thinking from so many different angles. Oh, is it this correct? Is it that? Is it, you know, she's making a really, so I think that's also matters a lot. So I will take this opportunity to talk to the judges afterwards, because there were a lot of people who then came up afterwards after this beautiful session, and they said, they asked the questions, for instance, what we liked most about their application forms, what they didn't like. Fourth thing I would definitely mention, it's how beautiful the event itself was. Very thoughtful. It was like an Oscar ceremony, actually, Oscar game ceremony or Emmy ceremony. So I would definitely encourage you and inspire also from this perspective. I don't know if you have seen the previous year's beautiful pictures. This year it's not in Georgia, but in every country where it takes place, it's beautiful, and the CAREC team makes sure that all of your needs are met, and that it's done in a very beautiful and cheerful and celebrity type of manner. And five, I would say that we all need celebrations. We all need someone to applaud for us. We all need someone to say something good to us, and it has nothing to do with our arrogance and ego, which we all have, but it's more like supporting and helping each other. And that's also what is happening at the CAREC award ceremony. And I wouldn't also want to miss this type of opportunity for yourself to clap yourself, or to other women who are doing amazing job from around the region. And also there are beautiful certificates, flowers. Also, I remember I got the badge made by Georgian Animal. So a lot of gifts also from the organizers. So I think that's also something you might need to take back home. And I still have the certificate. Actually, I cannot show it now because I have another background, but I have a CAREC certificate, which is actually in gold, and or maybe I will show you. Yeah, in violet and gold. Oh no, I cannot show it. It's all right. It's not. It's okay. But yeah, but you can understand what I mean. I'm sure you know it. So these are the 5 maybe top reasons why you would like to participate. But I'm sure there's more than those 5. So meanwhile, if you have some questions regarding today's topic, or there are any new comments, then I will be glad to hear that one, or to hear your voices. Well, actually, as I have said, I am a very big enthusiast of music. I love hearing not only music, but people's voices, which is also like music to my ears. So, you still have several minutes left for that if you want to.
Yeah, before actually moving to the comments, actually, I just briefly would like to mention that, also announce that we will be having our next guest speaker by the end of September. So it's kind of serious, you know, so we're inviting different guest speakers to be engaged in our online platform. So stay tuned, and we will be disseminating all the announcements through our Women Empowerment online platform, also through the CAREC website. So I also would like to encourage all of you also to disseminate and spread the word also in your network. And thank you so much. And then there is the comment in here chat box from Lika Salukwadze. She said, "Dear Maya, thank you for your insights again. Could you share us what kind of prevention practices are to avoid cognitive and unconscious biases?" That was the question.
Yeah,
and also Dr. Akil Mohammed said physical workshop should be arranged.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that, Dr. Akil. I saw Edvina, hello. So great to see you here. It was Vaipula Village, the Public Republic of China. Yes, the PRC winner. Yes, it was so lovely. Okay, now when it comes to the question about the practices, how to overcome, I think this slide could be one of them. If we're talking about the company-wide combating the cognitive biases or unconscious biases or gender biases, then awareness and education, mindful reflections, inclusive decision-making, this blind recruitment that I'm very big fan of, or feedback and accountability and policies and cultures and regular reviews and adaptations are the ones that really works. But here comes the interesting part of it. A lot of companies choose either or, and then they are complaining that it's not working. And obviously it's not working, because in our own life also, it's not one thing that decided our future, that decided where we are now today, right? It's the combination of a million things, combination of all these 35,000 decisions that we make a day. I hope you remember, right? That we make from 20 to 35,000 decisions a day, which is crazy. Our poor brain needs to have a little rest and, reprogram itself. So in order to help our brain to work longer, which means, it will take it's 35,000 decisions anyways. But we need to help to put things in system. And there is another amazing author, Kahneman, maybe you have heard of him, also another Nobel Prize winner in economics. And he talks a lot about the behavioral science and decision making. And he has this two system. I don't know if you have come up with it, but so the system 1 and system 2. So for instance, if we're driving a car and it's our first attempt after we got the driving license, or it's our first year, well, we know the first, second, third year, we need to think about whether turning right or left, turn on the lights, turn off the lights. So it takes a lot of time. And so it's in system 1. So it's in system 2. We need to take a lot of time to think about it. Why? Because our brain is not getting used to it and we are doing it for the first time. But when we are taking a fork or a knife or a spoon and putting it in our mouth and eating, we don't think about it. It happens naturally and it happens automatically. Why? Because we're getting used from our early childhood. So this is system 1. If I say, so for instance, how much is it 2 times 2? Everyone will say 4. Yeah, this is system 1. Things that are automatized already in our brain because we have already dedicated hundreds of thousands of time to it. Well, generally, the science says if we dedicate to something 10,000 hours, and there is another, my favorite author that I'm also reviewing, it's Malcolm Gladwell. He has amazing books like Outlier, Tipping Point, and others. So he says, if we dedicate 10,000 hours to something, whether it's language, whether it's music, whether it's managing leadership, then we are cooking as master chefs, then we are masters in that something. But regularly, continuously, systematically in something 10,000 hours, then we are considered to be in system 1 when we do things automatically. But after we drive 10 years, the car, then of course we don't have to think about certain. We can even listen to music and drive. We can even talk to someone and drive. I am not saying this is safe. I'm just saying we can do that. Our brain can do that once it's in system 1, which is quick decision making, the things that we have automated. So this is what needs to happen with the gender biases and cognitive biases. We have to talk about it so much. We have to discuss it so much, whether it's physical meetings, webinars, panel discussions, inter-country discussions, or any type of interactions or face-to-face interactions, that this is in our brain in system 1, in automatic decision making. So next time, when someone comes to our company, when someone comes to our children's daycare or school or university, we don't judge them based on gender biases. We will still judge them, but we will be less judgmental. So that will be my answer to your question, Lika, and thank you for your question. To systematize it, So systematize it, to
you.
talk about it constantly and all the time, constantly and all the time.
Thank you very much, Maya. And this is actually, unfortunately, we have to finish stopping here. And thank you again for your very interesting session. And hopefully we will just leave this room some thoughts also, recognizing our own prejudices and biases. And hopefully you also gained lots of knowledge, meaningful, just keep in mind that you would make a meaningful change and contribute, in your own life. So thank you very much again, and have a wonderful day ahead, all of you, and see you again soon on our next talk. Thank you.
Yes. Happy weekend, everyone, and happy journey in our own biases.
Yes, happy weekend.
All the best.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Greetings from Tbilisi.